Hey everyone, Phreak here. This is a video about making overpowered items or overpowered features or anything else in a game. And one thing I want to do this year, as we hop off that topic briefly, is do a lot more of these YouTube videos. And I want to quickly tell you that these are not going to be super high quality. There's plenty of other gaming YouTubers out there that do a good job of putting in B-roll of their games that they're talking about, and they can pull in quotes from other people. I am mostly not going to be doing that because this is much more of a hobby, and I sort of want this to only take me an hour to like jot down notes and then record and then upload. But I still want to get that content out there because it seems like there's people who really enjoy this stuff, and that makes me happy, and thus I want to bring this joy. That sounds a little conceited, but people seem to like it, so I want to make more of it. That's really what it comes down to. Let's talk about the fact that overpowered items that you know are overpowered, or runes or skill trees or whatever, can be good for your game. So I'm going to put down two ground rules, I should say, that I think are true about game design. Number one is game design progresses over time. As people, as a culture, sort of learn more about games, we understand better and better how to make these games fun. Most platformers have a double jump, if you've noticed. Like, that came out of kind of nowhere. There's no physics reason why it exists, but it's really satisfying to slightly miss your jump and go, oh, wait, I could do it again. And have the chance to course correct. In fact, almost every platformer also allows some level of control in the air, which again makes no sense in physics. And I remember old school platformers where once you hit the jump button, you're going that direction forever until you hit the ground. But most platformers now, or a lot of them, have double jumping and air control, which make no sense at all. In fact, even like first and third person shooters often have these because it turns out it's just more fun than, well, I press spacebar, now I have to wait. Game design progresses. First-person shooters have headshots. Most of them do. Not all, right? But it turns out that headshots are a really satisfying mechanic to test aim. And now, right, most RPGs and games like this, anything with a progression system, has items and skills. And they're places to essentially test your ability to make choices, make value judgments, and also to express yourself and sort of make non-value judgments. What kind of play do you want to have? The other ground rule I'm going to bring up is design is about trade-offs. That ultimately a system might be great for most things, but it might not be great for your game. Or you might choose to betray that rule in some way for your game. So not every first-person shooter has headshots if they don't think it makes sense. Or even not every gun has headshots. In Quake, I believe railguns can headshot now. They didn't used to, but I think they can now. But like, you can't headshot with the machine guns. You can't headshot with the shotgun. You can't headshot with a rocket launcher. You can't headshot with the lightning gun. Unreal Tournament I know actually had guns that had headshots, but only the sniper rifles had headshots. The other ones didn't. And then there's plenty of games that just don't have headshots. They're just that's not the kind of game they want to be, which I think is interesting. And it's because they want aim to matter a certain amount, and the designer says, okay, but we're stopping here. You have to hit the target, but where doesn't matter. We want that to be a softer experience. And that's a trade-off you make. Even though most shooters have this, your game doesn't have to. So let's talk about specifically overpowered things that are simply better. Like, landing a headshot is better than a non-headshot, but that takes skill, right? Yes, it's overpowered, but it's a mechanical skill vector, not a decision-making skill vector. I'm talking about things like items and runes and skill choices that are always the best. There's no like mechanical skill to get them, it's just better. And let's talk about why those exist, because they exist for a reason. So let's talk about items in a little bit more depth, right? They are a place for you to simply experience growth, right? Leveling up as a system is satisfying. It's really fun. You level up. I was level 2 and I'm level 3. My health went up. My mana went up. My armor went up. I have, one more slot for mods in my equipment now. I unlocked a new skill or perk. I now have access to the talent tree. I now have access to crafting. I leveled up. Something got better. And this is good because this can create game pacing things where if you're a brand new player, you have no idea what crafting is in make up whatever game you're thinking about. But at level 4, you've killed 100 monsters and you've done a couple of quests. Maybe you're like, okay, I get it. Yeah, I want a sword and a shield, or maybe I want 2 swords, maybe I want a bow. Now I can craft pieces of gear, right? Progression as a system is sort of intrinsically fun, and it's also good to help sort of teach players things. So You can have items that are overpowered simply because it's a level 6 item, and then a level 7 item, and a level 8 item, and a level 9, and a level 10, and a level 12, and we move on and on and on and on. And this item is just always better than your old item, but it's fun to progress. You can even have, the idea that, like, you don't get a bow until you kill a level 4 monster, and now, well, I have an option to throw a rock, or I can use a bow as my ranged option. Well, cool. I'm going to take the longbow because it actually deals damage, and now I've gotten this overpowered item because I used to have this, but now I have this, and it's way better. But it allows you to have sort of an experience of pacing, or a pacing of the experience itself. You have essentially unlocked ranged combat because you no longer have a rock that does 1 damage. You have a longbow that does 100 damage. This is clearly way more powerful than this rock, but that's intentional. So you can kind of lock and unlock experiences that way. That can be interesting. Any game that's about this sort of ascension to godhood, any sort of apotheosis fantasy. Look at any game like Skyrim, almost any RPG, like you just get more and more and more and more powerful. And the feeling of getting to one-shot a dragon, or, one-shot an eidolon or whatever, or, rip the heart out of some ancient god, that doesn't feel satisfying, or at least as satisfying, unless you are just some dude with a hand axe. And then you enchant the hand axe with lightning, and now you can, like, kill 2 zombies with a swing because it sparks out and deals extra damage. Yeah, it's overpowered, it's just better than your old hand axe, but, like, you earned this. You enchanted it with your wizard magic. You deserve to have this have chain lightning, right? There's a lot of growth that can happen by just simply saying, yes, items just get better, and your old choices don't matter. You just simply receive a strict upgrade. There is no choice to be had, even though you're using the same system, right? There's plenty of games where you say, okay, do I want a shotgun, an assault rifle, or a sniper rifle, right? Shotgun's close range, sniper rifle's long range, assault rifle's mid range. It's not as accurate, but, it doesn't one hit someone unless I can hit a headshot. So, I have choices here. Right? That's a choice vector, using items or weapons as a choice vector, and also an expression vector. What kind of player do I want to be? Do I want to be a sniper? Do I want to be a mid-range sort of assault player? Do I want to be a shotgun user where, I'm always ducking behind cover and popping out? I'm playing behind corners. I'm, playing Mass Effect, and I'm pulling things towards me so that I can shotgun blast them. There's an expression vector, not just a growth vector. But if you say, well, here's a shotgun that does 12 damage, and an assault rifle that does 12 damage, and a sniper rifle that does 5,000 damage and shoots just as fast, you just always pick the sniper rifle. So, then what the heck? OP items betray choice. Like, yeah, I get it that I get to grow. I get to grow as a player. Okay, that's cool. But if I get hand axe, then hand axe with chain lightning, then hand axe that kills dragons, at least I'm still using hand axes. Phreak, why are you defending? Shotgun deals 12, assault rifle deals 12, sniper deals 5,000. You're removing my choices. I can no longer express myself as a player, right? If longbows are overpowered, I can only play as a ranged character. I want to defend this. And, of course, all things in moderation, but I want to defend overpowered item choices. And I'm going to go back to League of Legends as my example, because I'm more experienced here. Right, items as a system are great because you can experience growth, and that's fun in and of itself, and that journey is exciting. And they allow you to express your play style because you get option A, B, or C, and I chose C, so my game is going to be different than your game when you chose B. That's cool. So why are we betraying this by making OP items? Point number 1, overpowered items and overpowered choices can create eureka moments. So I remember reading an article decades ago where someone was critiquing turn-based games and said, let's say you're making a turn-based player versus environment game where you're going to land on the beach at Normandy and you're going to go through D-Day and you're going to, get through the beach, you're going to land your soldiers safely, and you're going to make it into the encampment. And he said that if there is exactly one best way, and then it goes on, and then you invade the rest of the country, and then you win the war, right? Like, there's various stages to this game, right? And he says, if there's exactly one best way to invade the beach, just start the game after you've invaded the beach, right? Like, why are you making me do this thing? There's only one way to do it. I'm not expressing skill or anything. You're just making me do this thing, but there's really only one answer. And for a long time, I believed that, and I don't anymore. And it's because learning that one best way is exciting. Like, think about solving like a literal jigsaw puzzle. There is one best way you solve a jigsaw puzzle. You solve it. You put all the pieces in, then it's done. You probably never do it again. But doing it the first time was interesting. Think about actually any puzzle game overall. Play through Portal unless you're speedrunning, in which case, okay, that's an infinite skill vector. But, right, there is one best way, roughly, not always, but roughly, to solve every room in Portal. There can be 2, there can be 3, but there's roughly one best way. For most rooms, there's one best way outside of glitching out of the game. But doing it the first time is the fun part. Like, there is an overpowered solution to Portal, and it's put the portals in the right place, jump through them, reach the exit. Much like there can be an overpowered item to buy in an MMORPG or a MOBA or a first-person shooter. But learning that is exciting. And it's what, I don't think it's my term, but I'm calling a eureka moment. Sprinkling in these overpowered choices where they're always correct is a eureka moment. It's a place to say, I'm smart. And they don't have to be locked behind mechanical skill, like bunny hopping in a first-person shooter or getting headshots in a first-person shooter. In Warframe, which is a really fun game, I recommend you try it, running is slow. And you hit the sprint key and you hold W and you just chug along and it's kind of fast. And then you realize that rolling is just strictly faster than running. So running's really good. And then it turns out you can combine a roll with jumping and ducking and stuff. And I'm going to explain it in very vague terms, but essentially you can combine rolling and jumping and it's strictly faster than running. And you have about the same control over movement. So learning that I just parkour everywhere and jump off walls and roll around corners and all this random stuff, and I'm playing in the air the whole time and then holding myself aloft with jump jets is just strictly better than running. But learning that is a eureka moment. Just figuring out after an hour or two of gameplay, wait a second, I can just fly everywhere, and that's way the hell cooler. Yeah, it's way cooler, and you feel awesome because you discovered this. It's a eureka moment. Right, Warframe has a eureka moment of I should jump everywhere, and that's actually super sick. In League of Legends, it's going to sound kind of dumb, but boots of speed, also health potions. The choice is not super exciting, but it's a way to basically allow you to learn. Wait a second, I should always buy boots of speed. I should have these in my builds all the time, and you're not really getting limited in player choice that much because in League of Legends, there's 6 slots for items. So, you only really have 5 choices for items because one of them is always going to be a boots upgrade. But I should buy boots every game. That's interesting. Coming up with a rune build in League of Legends where there might be one optimal one for your character, but learning it and figuring it out and being oh my gosh, I should buy Trinity Force every game on Jax. Oh, that's so, yeah, of course. I'm playing Aurelia. If I buy Trinity Force, my Q will always one-shot caster minions because all the damage applies all at once and I reset it. And it's very easy if you're sitting here, and most of my viewers are hardcore League of Legends players, to be well, of course, I'm level 89 or 174 or whatever. I've played so many games of League of Legends. Of course you buy Trinity Force and really don't be an idiot. But imagine you are new to League of Legends, and you're Trinity Force one-shots caster minions when I'm Aurelia. That's awesome! Right? Or you're playing Jax and your W cooldown is 4 seconds or 3 seconds or something with Trinity Force, and you're it's on every time. That's great! Or you're playing Camille and Camille has really obvious Trinity Force synergy as well. And you're I have 2 Qs per mana cost, and they both trigger Trinity Force, and it turns into true damage. That's cool. Those moments should not be underrated. Yes, it's overpowered, and you're always, always, always going to buy this item. And yet learning it and being synergy, that's cool. OP synergies are, I think, one of the coolest things because they create eureka moments. You're I do this, and your enjoyment shoots up. You're this has been fun, this has been fun, this has been fun, this has been fun, and then bam, you plateau upwards in this giant spike, and you're I am way more powerful now. Oh my gosh, I do this thing now. This is awesome. I think that's actually a really big deal. I think it's a really big deal So it can create eureka moments. And I really want to consider those as hyper valuable. Yes, Jax doesn't have a real choice in whether or not he buys Trinity Force. Nor does Aurelia, nor does Camille. But guess what? That's fine. That's fine. The next thing that OP items does is it creates game pacing. Again, I'm going to go back to Boots of Speed as an example. And also think about the fact that a lot of items in League of Legends grant CDR, even when you're not trying to get them, and they grant move speed even when you're not trying to get them, right? Marksman buy Zeals, and Zeals give move speed. There's a lot of mage items, well, they used to be, not really anymore, but there used to be a lot of mage items that gave move speed, like everyone bought Luden's Echo for a while. Old Luden's Echo that gave move speed. But again, I'll use Boots as the example. Boots of Speed are overpowered, and intentionally so. And the Eureka moment is not quite so high with Boots of Speed as saying Trinity Force with Camille, but it's still there. You're like, I now understand as a player to always buy Boots. I am slightly more skillful now, and I'll always make this choice correctly. And that is a positive. You learn something, and now you know from the future on. Right, learning to double jump in a platformer, it's overpowered. Of course, you double jump. It's just like you just always get it. But let's talk about game pacing. Overpowered items can create game pacing. This is a bit more about PvP games. Boots of Speed and its upgrades are overpowered. You are always going to buy Boots, and yet you are rarely going to buy Boots in the early game, right? You're not going to buy them at level 1 when you walk to lane. A few champions do, but almost none of them. You buy Boots of Speed tier 1, maybe 6-10 minutes in. You buy Boots 2, okay, some mages rush Sork Shoes, so like LeBlanc does this, but a lot of them, you're going to wait till you get your first major item. Like as an AD carry, you're going to get BF Sword, and probably a Zeal upgrade, and then maybe even finish Affinity Edge, and then finish Berserker's Greaves. Now, some players like Reckless just rush Berserker's Greaves. Right, as a top laner, are you going to finish Trinity Force, you're going to buy Boots? And what's nice is 2 different OP items are now fighting on the same tier. Jax will always buy Triforce, and he will always buy Boots. Which does he buy first? He's always going to buy both, but at least he has that choice. And there's actually some value in a choice between 2 options, because it's very quantifiable. It's very easy to kind of put in your brain and say, hey, do I buy Lost Chapter first, or Sork Shoes first, or Boots 1 even? Do I finish Lost Chapter into Luden's Echo, or do I finish Sork Shoes first? Right? These are choices that are, right, there's 2 options. They're both the best option. Which one's more the best? That can be reasonable. Yes, you're always going to buy both these things. That's okay. You can still have some choices in it. But what it also does is it creates game pacing, as we go back to that topic. It creates game pacing. When champions only have base move speed at level 1, the map is essentially larger, right? Skill shots essentially move faster, but there's minions in the way, so they're hard to hit, but you can't dodge out of the way as quickly. Ganks are easier to see coming because the jungler has to walk through the vision at a slower speed, unless they can bypass walls because Kayn is cool. And it means that roaming is harder because it takes you 10 to 20% longer to get out of your lane and to the other lane. And then as time moves on, and you buy Boots, and your move speed goes up by 8%, and you buy Boots 2, and your move speed goes up by like 15%, you are now faster. And you're faster for the rest of the game. Like, every champion spawns at like 335 move speed. And then at like 15 minutes, every champion has 380 move speed. And like every game of League of Legends has this. Almost every single game, right? Very rarely are you bypassing Boots for that long, and very rarely are you starting Boots that early. Every game of League of Legends gets faster. And essentially because you are faster, the map shrinks. Because now going from mid to bot takes 15% less time. Because game pacing. An overpowered item essentially allows game designers to sort of unintrusively affect game pacing. Right? In the preseason, for example, that happened about a month and a half ago, or beginning of December. So yeah, about a month ago. Either way, a month and a half ago, we're good enough. That's fine. End of 2019. End of 2018. Why am I saying things that you already know the answer to? The game designer's like, hey, we're going to make minions just like at cutoffs per minute. Minions are going to get faster. And there's a recent nerf to Akali where they said at certain minutes into the game, the Shroud just simply stealths you faster. It's not going to be scaled based on level. It's going to be based off game time. And players, somewhat rightly so, were like, they were kind of okay with the minion one, like that was kind of okay. But they're like, but scaling abilities with game time is so arbitrary. Why are you saying, well, at 9 minutes, a colleague gets to stealth faster? That seems so weird. That's unintuitive or strange. That's very designery. How dare you? And there is some, I think, completely rational sort of truth to that it's very game designery. And that's why it's great to have your like dungeon master fiat, game designer says so moment, but you hook it into something that feels intuitive. League of Legends, move speed goes up over time, which can feel really weird when it's like, at 5 minutes, gain 10 move speed. But when your Cassiopeia is passive and it's like, yeah, every level you gain 6, you're like, okay. It's not actually 6, but you know what I mean. Or for every champion, it's like, yeah, you're just going to buy boots because boots are good. And like people are okay with boots being good because there's enough other items to choose among for the rest of the game. And they're actually fairly cheap. So like it gets out of the way and stops kind of constraining your economy pretty quickly. But the game just paces faster. And that's a positive. Overall, yes, this does create cost in options. But again, as I mentioned, right, boots are cheap, so they don't limit your options very much. I'll pick another game example. In Counter-Strike, grenades are overpowered. There's really not much of a choice with whether or not you should bring grenades with you. Flashbangs, smokes, whatever. Like smoke grenades, like pretty much literally every round you should bring a smoke grenade. Unless you're really just like full saving your money, you should just bring a smoke grenade every round in Counter-Strike. So there's really no choice. You're just always buying it. You're just always buying a smoke grenade. Why are you doing this to me? And again, there are very minor options, right? The team with money is going to spend $300 a person buying a smoke grenade and probably using it. And if a team doesn't have any money at all and they have to actually full save, okay, they can, in this case, save $300, and there is a minor choice with minor implications on the economy. Okay, that's fairly valuable. The other thing it does, though, is it says, okay, we are all gonna have smoke grenades. We're going to play around with this utility because Counter-Strike is a more fun game when we have smoke grenades and we can, block off the the sniper player, so that he can't see me and we can get around this corner safely. Right? Smoke grenades are actually a fairly interesting skill vector that Counter-Strike decided that, yep, these are going to be OP because for essentially game pacing, and, even for Eureka moments, like, oh, I should buy smoke every game because I will be better if I buy smoke every round. Yeah, the game functions better when there is smoke. Now, you could make the argument that, well, why don't characters just spawn with smoke grenades? Why not? And that is a reasonable argument to be made. And I think it would feel kind of designery. Like, it's why designers don't just set champion movement speed every few minutes in the game to make the game go faster. Or just like give this random map-wide 5% move speed buff when 10 minutes hits. It feels designery. They're like, hi, I spawned with my basic pistol because of course I do. Like, that feels okay, right? Like, is it too designery to spawn a smoke grenade? I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But it does give you that slight option that occasionally I'm going to skip the smoke grenade because that way I can afford a helmet. And I want to not die to an M4 in the head. So even though, yeah, it's kind of rough to not have a smoke this round, this one time it's worth it. And maybe that choice is wrong, but it gives you the option to choose. In 80% of rounds, you're going to pick up the smoke grenade. But once in a while, maybe you just decide, I only have $4,800. I'm going to buy an op and nothing else. And maybe that's okay. The choices actually matter on like pistol rounds. When you have $800 for your entire toolkit, a smoke grenade costs $300, and you're like, well, I could buy a smoke and a pistol, or I could buy armor, or I could buy a smoke and 2 flashbangs, or a smoke and flashbang and an HE grenade. Like, right? The choices matter on round 1, and then almost never again, because you're always going to buy a smoke grenade. It's an interesting musing. It's a random thought. Ultimately, what I want to put out with this video is having overpowered choices can be fine because they are intentionally there. You essentially are hooking overpowered choices into a system that already exists. If the system doesn't exist already, and there's an overpowered choice, like, hey, here's a skill tree, but the only good skills are swords, why is there a skill tree? It can be a place to like spend your resources. Like if you're, I don't know, let's say gaining experience, and so here I will word it in a different way. In lots of games and RPGs, when you level up, you gain health automatically, and you gain armor or automatically, or you gain health automatically, or you gain spell slots automatically, or whatever. That's essentially the game saying, you know what, we're going to remove the choice from you, because you should always choose health, you should always choose mana, you should always choose X, you should always choose Y, you should always choose Z. We want there to be no player choice in this level of growth. And if you want there to be no player choice in a certain level of growth, you just make it happen on its own, right? When you level up, your health goes up. That happens in most RPGs. And as players, we're like, yeah, okay. And that's fine. We're like, okay with that. That's just how that works. But if you want it to feel natural outside of when you level up, you gain X, if there's some other system where you don't want player choice, but it doesn't feel natural ever, you hook it into a system that already exists, that already has choices, you account for it, but you make it overpowered, right? Boots of speed, smoke grenades, things like this. It allows you to say, no, I want this to happen every single game, but it doesn't feel natural to happen on its own. Then you find a system where it does, where you can kind of piggyback it onto. That's, I think, ultimately where I'm coming in with this one, is that's why overpowered items can be fine, and overpowered options. Is you bring it into a system that is already rich, that already has choices, you piggyback onto it and say, okay, but very quickly, spend 1,100 gold here, because it's the most elegant way to make that happen. And it allows you to say, I have learned that this is always a great choice. I'm smarter. I'm now a better player. Those are the things I believe. Let me know how you feel. Let me know how you feel about just like me on a webcam talking for half an hour. What I could do better, what I could do differently. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.